How does altitude training work? What effect will it have on my training? And do you really need to relocate to get the benefits? I've signed up to a 6-week training camp at the Altitude Centre in London to see whether training at a simulated altitude twice a week will increase my cardiovascular capacity and my athletic performance. Last week we did some testing where we measured my VO2 max and my training zones. You can check out my last video to see the details on that. But I got a score of 59 on the VO2 max. And then my VT1, which is basically your aerobic threshold, was 151 beats per minute. And my VT2, which is like your anaerobic threshold, was 170 beats per minute. And what that meant was, like, we found that I had a good aerobic base, but I could benefit from doing more high intensity training, especially as I gear up towards my race in a couple weeks' time. Now, the research around altitude training really all kicked off after the 1968 Olympics, which was held at Mexico City at 7,000 feet above sea level. And what they found was the average times of the distance events took a really big hit. Athletes really struggled. But they also found that those athletes that had adapted to altitude increased their performance when they was back at sea level. And since then, there's been a lot of research done around all sorts of variables like living at altitude and training at sea level, living at sea level and training at altitude, and then also using technology to recreate the environment of altitude training in order to gain the benefits. And that's what I'm going to be doing at the Altitude Centre. The Altitude Centre has two different ways of simulating altitude. They have the intermittent hypoxic exposure, which is basically where you're at rest and you wear a mask, which simulates altitude dependent on your blood oxygen levels. So you have a little device on your finger that measures your heart rate and your blood oxygen levels. And then as you rise in altitude as such, your blood oxygen drops and your heart rate rises. If oxygen levels drop too low, it will feed you like normal air and bring you back to normal. And this is used to boost recovery because you increase your blood flow, it increases the release of hormones such as growth hormone, and it also increases the efficiency of oxygen transfer from the air in through your lungs and into the blood. The other method is training at simulated altitude, and this is done in the chamber, which is a room which simulates 2,700 meters or 8,900 feet, which is basically, it's like the equivalent of the Southern Alps, that kind of region. And there are a few benefits of training here. Firstly, your heart rate is naturally higher, and this means that you don't have to go as fast or as hard to reach your target heart rate. And the reason this is beneficial is because it's less damaging on the body. So, you know, like a zone 2 run could be more like a walk at altitude, and therefore you're not getting that same impact, but you're getting the beneficial aerobic response. During interval training, your heart rate spikes much quicker, making it easier to reach those high zones. But more importantly, the body becomes better at working with less oxygen and performing the same intensity. Meaning, under normal conditions, you'll be working at a lower percentage of your max, and then therefore you'll have more room to push the pace. So that's all the theory, but what does it look like in practice? So just finished my first session in the altitude chamber. We are at 2,709 meters, 15% oxygen. And what I started with is I did a workout that I've done under normal conditions just to kind of see what the difference was. So I kept the same paces from the previous workout and just had a look at what my heart rate was doing. And obviously at the same paces,
your heart rate climbs much higher. So that's kind of what I wanted. The advantage of that is I don't have to run as hard, so I'm not taking on quite so much damage, but I'm still getting the heart rate response. And that was definitely the case. It was so much tougher from a breathing aerobic perspective. But actually, running wise, my legs felt okay. I'd done a strength session yesterday, so really, I wouldn't be able to run very fast, but I didn't need to get the heart rate up. So that's kind of what we want, as well as all the other benefits, which I'll kind of go over as the weeks go on.
And I've now finished my second session, which was a VO2 max interval session. And this was recommended for me to do to work on that high end heart rate capacity, so that kind of max capacity effort. And it was a group session led by an instructor, where we did like various intervals of 20 seconds to like 2 minutes, fast running with similar work to rest ratio. And I definitely felt that's what I needed. Doing it in a group environment was great with the instructor. It really does push you. I don't feel like I ever lack motivation to work out, and I push hard, definitely go to those kind of dark places, but in the group sessions, there's something about just people's presence there makes you really stick to those intervals. You don't ease off, and actually I haven't done a great deal of interval runs on a treadmill. I normally do them outside, and there is something about like sticking to the speed that you set on the treadmill, and you can't ease off as you tire. So it definitely pushed me, and I feel already that's kind of some of that real hard stuff that I've been missing in my training. I used to do that kind of stuff more regularly, but recently I've been kind of doing more grindier, longer sessions. So that was really good. In terms of the altitude, I find it really kind of creeps up on you. Both sessions I've done so far, you don't notice it when you first get started. It's kind of like halfway through the workout, and in this one especially, where you finished up an interval and you're taking really deep breaths, and it feels like you need 2 or 3 more breaths to get the same amount that you would under normal conditions. I also spent an hour in the pod, which is that intermittent hypoxic treatment, and this, it doesn't feel like like a sauna or other recovery tools where you come out and feel really revitalized, but at the same time, it's kind of relaxing once you get over the mask, and you just focus on your breathing. You get pretty chilled out, and I don't know whether that's just the low oxygen or just taking a break mentally. I think there's lots of compelling benefits of meditation, and I find it difficult to meditate without feeling like I'm wasting time. But if I book into one of these pod sessions, then there's something slightly different. I feel like I'm actively making progress, and then it's good for the mind too. So that's just week 1 of 6, and I'm going to be doing a race in Copenhagen next week. So I'm not sure if that's long enough for all of the physiological adaptations to take place. But one thing is for sure, I have already got more familiar with those high intensity efforts, which I think is, it's kind of just as much mental as physical. I think in my last doubles race in Manchester, I felt fit, but I really wasn't ready to kind of go to that place and stay there. So next week I'll be tapering down. I'll probably be using that pod a little more, and we'll see how we get on race day. As always, if you want more guidance on how to incorporate anything that I discuss into your training, go to coactiveperformance.com, where I have training plans and coaching options available to you. Anything else, you can reach me on Instagram at WoodsyWorkout, where you can find plenty more tips and tricks on all things health and fitness. Until next time, peace.